Hi, I'm Kelsey Hudson, one of the Youth Services librarians at Middleton Public Library. This is our third digital book talk for our summer reading program, Imagine Your Story. All the books I talk about today are available through Middleton Public Library, and the theme we're talking about is historical fiction. First book I'm going to talk about is White Rose by Kip Wilson. This is historical fiction, but it is based on the true story of Sophie Scholl, who was executed on February 22nd, 1943, along with her brother for treason against the Nazi regime. This book is told through a series of poems that tell Sophie's story as a young German woman joining a resistance organization called the White Rose. The White Rose printed and distributed anti-Nazi pamphlets throughout Nazi Germany. The story goes back and forth between Sophie's capture and interrogation by the Gestapo and her childhood growing up in the Third Reich, kind of becoming disillusioned with Nazism and then feeling compelled to speak up and take action against the Third Reich. So it's a heartbreaking story because you can Google Sophie Scholl, you know it doesn't end well for her, but she was an incredible person, very inspirational, and the author uses a lot of Sophie's own quotes in the poems, including the one that I will read to you really quickly. This is called Freedom. After I read my indictment, sign my life away on the bottom, I write a single word, Freiheit, on the back of the paper. Across the room, my cellmate has tears in her eyes, but I turn to the window, let the sunshine warm my face. Such a lovely day. But what does my death matter if it means more students will continue what we started? If it means our actions will start a revolution? If it means others might live? The sun still shines. I open my eyes, take in the beauty that I know lies beyond these walls, insert my spirit into a sunbeam, send a ray of hope into this hopeless world. It was a really powerful, moving book. If you enjoy historical fiction about World War II, particularly true stories, then give White Rose by Kip Wilson a try. My next book is about basketball, but it is also about Nazis. So this is a nonfiction book, Games of Deception by Andrew Moranis. Did you know that the first time basketball was played during the Olympics, it was in Berlin in 1936 under Adolf Hitler's rule? It could be argued that Nazis helped popularize basketball and that the basketball we know today exists because of these 1936 Olympics in Berlin. This book goes through the history of basketball, starting with the creation by a Canadian man who was looking for a sport for men to play in the wintertime to get some energy out. And he based it off of a game he used to play as a child, to the formation of the team that went and played in 1936 in Berlin, which was made up partly of Jewish players and funded partly by Jewish people. And then also lighter facts, like the menu on the cruise ship that the team took over to Europe, which sounds horrifying, like calf's head horrifying. And also the fact that in the early games of basketball, there was no dribbling. There was just passing, which just sounds weird. But it's an interesting look at the world at that time, the racism that was happening in Germany, the racism that was happening back in the United States. So if you're looking for a interesting, not very well talked about time in history, try the Games of Deception. If you're missing the Olympics this summer, as I know I will be, read about the 1936 Olympics. And my last book is a completely different time period with no Nazis, I promise. This is The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu. You've probably never heard of Nannerl Mozart. She was Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's sister. They used to play together throughout Europe, and she was at one point very famous and considered equally talented to Mozart. So this story talks about Mozart and his sister Nannerl and their adventures in the Kingdom of Back, which was a kingdom that Nannerl and Mozart actually invented. Historians have studied their letters and read about the Kingdom of Back. So Marie Lu took that real historical fact and kind of spun this fairy story. So Lu imagines that Nannerl and Mozart were visited by a blue fairy boy from the Kingdom of Back who asked for their help in getting his kingdom back, and in return he would help them gain notoriety in their own world. So for Nannerl, who's a girl, not allowed to be famous or be a career musician, it's quite an enticing prospect. So she helps him throughout her childhood and then eventually gets older and realizes that things are not as they seem. So it's a really interesting fiction book about a character that is not often talked about throughout history, powerfully feminist, and Marie Lu is just an excellent writer. That's The Kingdom of Beck. If you are looking for more book recommendations, keep an eye out for future videos, or you can always get in contact with me. You can find my contact information on the team website of Middleton Public Library. Thanks for tuning in.